The Aussie NFL Fantasy Show would like to acknowledge the traditional land owners and the leaders past, present and emerging of Ngunnawal, Ngambri and Darawal countries where we are working from today. This always was, and always will be, Aboriginal land.
This is the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show.
If we just put a British accent, someone just narrating how to get your medicines prescribed.
Aussie?
Oh no, I just gave it away. Jeez, it's me. I was the guy that won the Astro League. I forgot about
shit, were you?
but
NFL?
He was just silent, no camera on. I'm just sitting there, I'm like eating my finger bun pre-draft.
Fantasy.
and they were having breakfast together, sitting there having big breakfasts, having a bit of bacon and egg, bit of sausage.
Sharing a
So
bagel. Very good.
we all know what that means. So basically, lock MPJ in for a top one season this year.
Top one.
Tell the tradesman. No reason to have a trade segment on the podcast.
This is the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show.
Yeah, there we go. There we go, mate.
Yeah, that's the stuff.
Oh, that looks even bigger, man.
That didn't do anything for me.
Oh, it did stuff for us. Yeah.
It did shit for us. It's good enough.
In today's busy world, it's hard to have it all. Who has time to do all the analysis and decision making for your fantasy team? Probably not you, but we can help. Whether it's positively diagnosing players with fantasy leprosy, or helping you find the players who are on the verge of being fantasy legendary. There's only one name in all of fantasy you can really trust. Make an appointment with Dr GoodCall.
Yeah, so that brings us to our second segment, I guess. Everyone's favorite doctor on the block yet again. Of course, I'm talking about Dr. GoodCall.
Get to see that wonderful lab coat, mate.
Yeah.
I love the
that.
intro. It's just so calming. Like it's just, I just feel like I'm there. I'm not there for a rectal exam. It's there for just, just a quick checkup.
Mate, we can always schedule you for that. It's just going to cost double.
Need a good colonoscopy every now and again.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I got a colonoscopy after watching that Broncos Colts game. I can tell you that.
Oh,
Please work that in somewhere.
I'm
yeah,
sure
please.
Maddie's already working on making it a drop.
It's already dropped. It's already dropped at this point. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Well, Dr. GoodCall, we've heard that Matty's been injured this week. Can you actually cure his injuries? Are you really that good of a doctor?
Well, mate, for most of the year, I definitely have been. Don't mean to toot my own horn, but that's pretty much what I'm here to do. So, for most of this year, I've definitely been hitting more than I've been missing on the Dr. GoodCall segment this year. We had a bit of a blip on the radar last week. I'll put it that way. But Matty did me a favor last week, right? He absolutely fucked up two of the things when he posted on the social media page. He actually gave me two different players than I actually said on the podcast. So when I do my results, I'm going to base it off that because those results were far better than what I actually brought up. So thank you, Matty C. You really did me a solid. But I'll mention the guys that I actually said as well, just because I'll have to wear my my losses with my wins as well, mate. So
Yeah.
I brought up Ryan Tannehill last week. I actually thought it was a decent opportunity for him up against that Washington Commanders, but he didn't even call it a secondary. I don't know what the fuck it is, a buddy tertiary. I don't know. They're absolute garbage. Like they're so much better at defending the run than they are the pass. So I thought there was an opportunity for Tannehill there. He'd actually maybe throw to Henry a bit more than just pass off. But in the end, he had just under 15 points. So he wasn't, he didn't destroy your week, but in the end, he didn't really do anything, special. He got the win, and that's all, we cared about as a Titans fan. But in terms of fantasy, he wasn't fantastic. He basically did what Tannehill normally does. So it wasn't an upgrade in terms of the matchup. So I wouldn't really call that a win there. At running back, I said Damian Harris because I just thought him being the lead back up against that Lions bloody running D. Again, if you can call it a defense, I really don't think you can. But he gave me Ramondre Stevenson, who I actually brought up at the starts of the week. So I'm going to take it. And Ramondre Stevenson came out and banged out 21.5 fantasy points. So thanks, Matty C. That was wonderful. Sorry, I just got AIDS then. All right, the next one I can't stay away from because he actually put the right one up. I felt gross, and this was a really, really weird game. I took Corey Davis up against the Dolphins because they were 28th against wide receivers. And they just went in, I don't know, put up 40 fucking points. And then none of it went to basically anyone. It didn't make any sense. It was basically Michael Carter and Brees Hall that did most of the damage. And honestly, any of the wide receivers that caught touchdowns didn't really have enormous games either. It was a really weird day for the Jets receiving corps. And if you'd told me they scored 40 points before I did this pick, I would have been all over Corey Davis. But in the end, he only had 5.8 points. So it definitely wasn't a win for Dr. GoodCall there. And honestly, if I'd taken any of the other wide receivers, I barely would have won either.
Now, outside of Brees Hall, no, there was one 70-odd yard reception, and that was most of Zach Wilson's passing yards.
Yeah.
Like, they really didn't pass well.
Was Brees Hall like 2 for 100 or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. It wasn't. He got the most by far, and it was one reception that boosted that up. So it was a weird game.
That's what I mean, though. They scored 40 points, and like none of the wide receivers had really a great day at all. I think Braxton Berrios came in for a touchdown, but even his stat line was not great. Like, it was really, really weird. Like you couldn't find anyone that was actually decent. Like, Wilson didn't have a good day. Yeah, it was a really weird day for the Jets because you would think from scoring 40 points they would have actually had a great day.
Yeah, it's all defense, wasn't it?
Well, this is even weirder, right? So, again, Matty C gave me Njoku for tight ends. And that's actually who I picked. I went double down on the Jets, who scored 40 points. Tyler Conklin goosed, people. He scored nothing. He had one target for nothing, and they scored 40 bloody points.
He scored as many points as you and I, T.
Mate, I reckon I scored more than that.
He scored more than Braxton Berrios in half PPR. He had -1 yards on his one catch. So, but he did have one rush for 15 yards. Okay, so I did the math wrong there, but you get my point. He did better than some people in the receiving game. So calm down, the Tyler Conklin hate here.
Bloody hell. Anyway, but he gave me Njoku, so let's roll with that, people. Njoku had 14.8 points and was in my starts of the week team, which we'll get to later. But I'll take it. Njoku's definitely looked wonderful in the last few weeks in this Cleveland attack. I brought up actually preseason that Brissett really favours the tight end position. He did it in a lot of his other stints. So I thought Njoku might have been a breakout this year, and it took a few weeks, but it looks like it might be happening. So we'll see if that continues to happen. But yeah, it wasn't one of Dr. GoodCall's better weeks, but I'll take Matty C's fuck ups.
Yeah, Matty C might have to be sued for medical malpractice at this point.
Well, this is why doctors have insurance, so you're okay, T.
Yeah,
it's so funny I'm talking about Dr. GoodCall because I've all of a sudden just started coughing. So it's I definitely need to cure myself.
Man, got COVID and AIDS in the same episode.
You caught it from those pigeons.
Yeah, those pigeons having sex. I caught it from the big banana. I'll let you use your own minds for what that means. Anyway,
better than what you caught from the big prawn.
It's a funny segue because I'm now talking about the fantasy AIDS player I brought up for last week. I've actually had a really, really good year picking this. I was actually working this out the other day. The only time I've lost all season was because I decided to pick 2 in 1 week. And that also happened to be the only wide receiver I've picked all year. I've been picking basically running backs every single week. And I've actually picked it right in terms of them having a far worse week than basically the stats of the rest of the season has been. So I've definitely considered that a lot of wins. I'm basically 5 out of 6 so far. So last week I took Najee Harris up against that Bills defense, and he ended up with 6.6 points in PPR, which was basically horrendous. So I definitely considered that a win. I know Najee was sort of struggling already, but I just thought it was going to be even worse last week. Like, I was basically thinking that it's at the point now that you could actually find another option and bench Najee for that game specifically. I think in general, you're probably better off playing him than not, but I think he was literally benchable in that game against the Bills, and it showed because they were just down so quickly And then he really isn't profiling as anywhere near a good a pass catcher this year that he was last year, because Big Ben just had to throw to him. He had no other option. Whereas now the mix between, Trubisky and Pickett, I just think that they're able to extend plays a bit more instead of just dumping off. And the fact is the O-line still sucks pure ass. So he's not going to get very good yards per carry either. So I just think it's really, really tough times for Najee right now.
Yeah. Mark, do you have the same seething hate of the Steelers offense as Taylor does? And even I do, to be fair.
Yeah, I just don't. Najee's the obvious, the best player, like the most talented player on that offense.
Yep.
But it's like, which pass catcher do you want? Like, Chase Claypool is a good receiver. So is Deontay Johnson. Which one's going to have a good week? For me, it's kind of, it reminds me of when Deshaun Jackson and Pierre Garçon were on the same team, on the Redskins. It's like, one of them is going to have a good week. Just pick one. Yeah, I'm not a massive Steelers guy. Plus, I hate Brian Flores. No reason why I hate him whatsoever, but I just hate him.
Of course not.
Yeah, and they never look at George Pickens at all. Like, he's literally wide open. He pushes over receivers, literally bullies them, and then gets open, and they never look at him. He's never thrown the ball. Which, it's just, it's definitely between Claypool and Deontay Johnson at that point. It annoys me. And Kenny Pickett, somehow, some way, he got all of these empty passing yards. I think he finished up as the second or third leading passer in passing yards this week, which shows you just how bad this sort of stat is. It's actually Wentz that finished second and Pickett finished fourth. So literally that shows you how overrated passing yards can be as a stat, by the way. Just want to put that in play.
What you're saying is Kenny Pickett is basically Blake Bortles.
Yeah. At this point, he had 327 yards and an interception and a 74.8 passer rating. It was literally just empty yards. He had 52 attempts. So it's literally 6 yards an attempt using my quick math skills. It was just, I don't even know. It's not even that good of a game. It's just like 6.8 yards per attempt. That's not even that good of numbers. So, but he's just a rookie. So I'm not going to pile on him too much. So, yeah.
I'll pile on him. Kenny Shickett. That's what I'm going to call it.
Nah,
yeah, we'll workshop something. We'll work it out. Again, I've had my say on Pittsburgh from the preseason, the training camp, week 1, 2, 3, pick any single week. I've been hating on this Pittsburgh offense, and I have not been proven wrong once. So it was a bit. I just thought the Najee opportunity was to point out that there are legitimate weeks that you can sit him, and I thought that was the week. So to me, that's what the whole point of this segment is that I'm trying to find guys who people would probably normally be starting that I think are legitimate sit options in the week that I believe they're going to have 8. So it's worked so far.
Yeah,
just a quick takeout on what you said about when you're saying you typically go for running backs over wide receivers for your fantasy aids. Like I've got exactly the same analysis I did. I think on my first episode a couple of weeks ago. In terms of the tier breakdown, most wide receivers have actually gone up in tier. None of the top, I reckon, 30 running backs have even maintained their value. Most of them have actually dropped.
Yep. Yeah, 100%.
So it's a really weird year for stats, because typically running backs, you lean on them and they carry you, but there's just nothing there this year, it feels like. And whether or not it's like we've had a lot of blowout score lines, whether that's something, I don't know, but it's just a weird year.
I find it easier to look into the stats and break down matchups for running backs than I do wide receiver, because to me, wide receiver, like you can look at a certain guy who's up against a team that's 29th against receiver or whatever, but all of it can go to shit on game scripts. Like it's really weird. It's sort of all over the place. Like one team's really good one week at defending the wide receiver, then they're shit the week after, and vice versa. I find that the teams that are very good against running backs seem to very much be good against running back almost every week. And I just think it's a lot easier to sort of break down the matchups of of people up against these guys, because then you can also break down what you think the game's plan's going to be. And then like last week, to me, it seemed like it was a slam dunk with Najee having a bad game, because not only were they up against a very good run defense, they were also up against a team that they were pretty much guaranteed to be behind against. So I found it actually quite simple to sort of put all that together and go, Najee's going to have a struggle of a game. And you seem to be able to find those sort of loopholes and things like that with running backs more than you do wide receiver, because even in wide receiver, you'll be like, oh, this guy's got a shit quarterback and they're up against a team that they're going to struggle against. But then all of a sudden you get all this garbage time that helps them get 10 points in the last quarter. And then all of a sudden you picked a wide receiver who was shit in the first three quarters and then dominated the end of the game. A la Terry McLaurin when I fucking picked him in like week 3 against Philly, and he was on like 0 like halfway through the third quarter, and he got all this garbage time, and then all of a sudden it looks like it's a shit call. Well, that's what I mean. I just find that running backs don't seem to like eke their way into points as well as wide receivers at the end of games and make your calls look shit. So I don't know. I just think I feel like there's better stats to be had by picking a running back that's going to struggle than wide receiver.
Yeah. And of course, long-term value, Mark, when you're looking at running backs, how does that affect the sort of dynasty value in running backs now?
They typically don't. Like, it's always wide receivers. There was the old 3-year rule where they don't break out to their third season, which kind of in recent years since, I guess, Odell, that's kind of been shelved because there's been some amazing wide receivers in the last couple of years. Tight ends, same thing to a lesser extent. I mean, you really top tier ones like your Kyle Pitts, your Frymouth, he's come through fairly well. OJ Howard was really good at the start, but then he's kind of just done nothing. And then sort of quarterbacks as well. You get a couple of good runs, and then you get a year where they're a bit iffy. The wrong quarterback in what was it? The year Lamar was drafted.
2018.
Yeah. So that year was all messed up. Take a redo of that draft looks so different. Typically your running backs just like your Zeke, for example. People were selling the world for Zeke. You got 2, maybe 3 years out of him. Now he's nothing. Like you'd still start him, but he would be flex, I reckon, at most, maybe RB2 if you're fairly weak at running back.
Yeah.
I haven't
benched him.
Like you basically can't trade him for anything that you'd want back.
No, you get not for what you invested.
Yeah, it's terrible what's happened to Zeke at this point in his career. He's pretty much washed at this point. Sad to say.
Nice story though on Saquon. Like he fell away to the point where again you couldn't sell him, but he's starting to come back in value. So now you can sort of if you aren't confident you can maintain that, you can recoup some stuff. Probably not everything, but some.
This is the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show. Maddie C.
James Conner's behind the dowel. Go look behind the dowel. And I look like I'm wearing my dad's shirt. Totally like McCaffrey. It always looks like he's wearing his dad's gear. Fantastic. I'm glad that you've still got the, that luxury of being allowed to lick rhinos still in the back pocket.
Aussie?
And then T. Higgins. Like these are just 3 guys, man, Jod. If you left him in a room alone with, he would totally just lick them all.
NFL?
The gap between Connor and Montgomery is closing, by the way. I'm really happy about this.
Fantasy.
Oh, give me a scoop of the Heebies to go with my Jeebies on that one. Mate, I'm all kinds of happy about that. You're like, oh, fucking predictable Matty. Always doing the same fucking things. I'm so disappointed. I really wanted to smack that ass, son. I'm going to go with old Goggles McGee.
All right, I'll move on to my Dr. GoodCall Week 6 takes. So
yeah, let's go.
Cut through them pretty quickly. So quarterback, we've talked about him already. It's my boy Gino up against Arizona.
Ooh.
That Arizona fucking secondary sucks balls. 25th against quarterback, and I've mentioned this earlier in the year. They're 27th ranked in the PFF secondary rankings. So I really like Gino. I'm sort of in on this Seahawks team because they've sort of blown it out of the water in terms of what everyone expected, and Gino just looks great at the moment, and he's actually throwing for a lot of yards, and people didn't expect it. So I'm picking him as my good call this week. I think he's quarterback 5 on the season at the moment. I don't think anyone would be starting him like he's quarterback 5, but I think that continues this week against Arizona.
Yeah, I'm liking that call. We actually picked him up on the Western Wankers this week.
I did say that. Well done.
Yeah, we got 3 quarterbacks. We're rolling with the Goff on the bye, Dak coming off his bum injury, and of course Gino on his hot streak. We've already got maybe a few teams wanting to trade with us. I'm not gonna spoil that one there, but look, Gino, we absolutely love him. When we saw him was on the waiver wires, we had to go all in and just pick him up. So look,
Especially because the guy you're playing needs a quarterback too, so you wanted to get him ahead of Seahorse.
yeah, Seahorse, friend of the podcast, used to be a former host of this podcast too. So 100%. Yeah, Seahorse, man, he's got bye McGadden. So if you guys got a ton of buys this week, especially if you're playing a guy like Goff, you got to get Gino, surely, if he's not already taken. You've got to pick him up because somehow he was still there in our 16-team league, which just makes no sense to me. And now we've got 3 quarterbacks on our team, including Gino. So
I love that on a 4-man bench you have 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
yeah, don't worry, we're dropping one at least soon or
I
trading.
remember when I had 2, fucking Mark was all over me just about bench, like having flexibility on your bench. You guys have got fucking 2 on your bench.
Yeah.
I just had Carr and Stafford in my team at once.
Yeah, we have what? Gino starting this week, and then Dak potentially coming back this week. So then Goff is on the outs. So yeah, Goff is on the bye week, so he might be on the outs after that last game.
When are you going to give up on Dak?
Yeah, when
At what point?
We're trying. We're trying
I
to
asked
give
the
up.
question to them. Obviously, it probably was a bit easier after watching Goff last week, but I was like, well, if Dak comes back next week, like, would you actually start him over Goff? Like, you're in a position where Goff's almost better, like, has more value to you than Dak at the moment anyway.
Yeah,
Man, I don't know that Dak's going to start. Like, how
Yeah, I
do you
don't
pull
know.
Cooper Rush?
And of course, Goff isn't starting this week, so we had to pick someone up.
Oh, absolutely. No doubt about
So
that.
Gino is our boy. We believe in you, Dr. GoodCall. So yeah, Gino, we're riding with you this week. Might be discarded next week, but who knows? So yeah.
All right, for running back, I'm going to bring up someone who might, like, the name will seem a little bit more obvious, but I think people still have been a bit unsure about him even after watching his person in front of him on the depth chart go down. Poor man, Jot. I'm going to bring up Melvin Gordon. He's up against the Chargers, who are last against running back. And again, like, most people would have just assumed that, all right, he's the next one up, but that there wasn't a guarantee that his role was actually going to expand. Like, there was thoughts that Mike Boone was just going to sort of take, basically the Melvin Gordon role, and then Melvin Gordon would go into a bit of a Javonte maybe role, who no one actually really knew. And then all of a sudden, Latavius Murray turned up. So you weren't exactly sure how that split was going to go. And we didn't actually get to see Murray because he hadn't been there long enough, so he was inactive. He's going to be there now, so we're probably going to get a better look. But I just think I saw enough out of Melvin Gordon to think that I reckon Latavius and Boone are probably going to split the rest of it, and it's still going to mostly be Gordon. And I did like what he was doing in the passing game last week, especially in that absolute arsehole of a game. So I see him having a very, very good game this week up against that Chargers team who are just leaking points to running back. So I thought I would bring him up because I think some people are a little bit unsure about how it looks moving forward in running back. And I think he's definitely taking that role for Denver moving forward.
Yeah, I can see that too. I don't know to what effect, because I'm a bit of a Melvin Gordon hater on this podcast because I'm a Javonte fan. I've got to hate Melvin Gordon at this point. Now, Marky Mark, do you think Melvin Gordon will have a revenge game on Monday Night Football against his former team, the Chargers?
Didn't even bring up the revenge factor. Well done, man.
My friend, I know your feeling too well. Last year, I had Javonte, and every week I just sat there and cried into my beard that it's like, just get Melvin Gordon off the fucking field.
Yeah.
I have to start Latavius Murray this week. I feel sick. I don't want to do it, but there is no other option. So naturally, yes, Melvin Gordon is going to have a cracking game, and Latavius is not going to see the field at all.
Has anyone ever played Latavius Murray on purpose? I feel like it's always a forced act. Like it didn't matter what team he's on. You know, if he was sitting there on the Ravens or he's at the Saints, like it was always like, oh fuck, I've got to play someone. So Latavius is just there.
Yeah, wasn't he like the Vikings? Even like the Raiders. I don't even know back then. He was on the Raiders. Wasn't even that.
Even
great.
Mr. and Mrs. Murray are sitting there with their fantasy lineup going, we just can't put Latavius in.
No, God, no. Our son sucks.
Yeah, I mean, look, his best year was 2015 with the Raiders, 1,066 rushing yards. That was his best rushing output. He had 12 touchdowns in 2016, though. So, look, he can do it in a variety of ways. But that was years ago, and now he's just bouncing from team to team. Just a sad way to see Latavius sort of end his career.
Was that the same year Cooper was drafted?
Oh yeah, Cooper. Wait, yeah, Amari, wasn't it? 2014. Yeah, that's when he was. I think that's when he joined the team. 2013, 2014, round then.
I call him laundry detergent because he is washed.
Oh,
Yeah.
stop it.
Oh boy.
Well played.
Look at these sound bites. How good are they?
Yeah, that's good. That's a good one. Yeah, we need some sound bites after Maddie went down this week. So, we're always thinking about you, Maddie, but we need Taylor's sound bites more than ever to really carry the show.
Really carry this brilliant show.
Yeah.
All right, I'll move to my wide receiver. This is actually one that just sort of fell into my lap. I wasn't specifically doing any good call analysis today, but I was looking at him. I was actually just looking at just wide receiver stats yesterday, and there was one guy I kind of wanted to get a look at when he'd come back, and I noticed he had a bit of an off week last week in his first week back, and then he just popped up with some stats, being the leading. I don't know if he was the leading target getter, but he had 8 targets for 7 receptions, and it's Rondale Moore. I wanted to get a look at him, especially before Hopkins comes back. So, like I said, 8 targets, 7 catches, and he gets the Seattle great matchup. They're actually 4th against wide receiver, but overall their defense is terrible. All the touchdowns just seem to be on the ground whenever a team plays Seattle. So this is a last opportunity to get extra target share before Hopkins comes back. So this is one of those ones that I like to do sometimes in Astro, where you pick up a guy who I think is going to have a very good week, but there's probably some reasons as to why it's not going to be sustained. This is the kind of guy I would like to pick up, watch, have a very good game, and trade. So that's sort of the thing I would like to do. So, obviously that would be a bit easier in Astro because, anyone that sort of has a pulse and scores 10 points here and there is worth it in Astro because it's so hard to find guys off the waiver wire. But even in any league, I would get him because there is a lot of sort of thought process about why Rondale might be good in this team. And then you even saw Greg Dortch, the Maddie's boy, buddy, have a good role in this team. And honestly, I think that pretty much was the Rondale Moore role. And he just wasn't there, obviously, at the start of the year. So now that he's back, Dortch definitely doesn't seem to be a factor anymore. And I just think Rondale Moore is going to be very, very much a part of this offense. And especially Hopkins isn't back yet. So I think this is a really good opportunity. I think Seattle, them being 4th against wide receiver in fantasy is a complete anomaly. I think they're horrendous everywhere. They just aren't getting torched yet by wide receivers because every running back is just destroying them every week at the moment. So I think this is a really good opportunity to get in front of what I think is a better matchup than it looks on paper.
I mean, they've got a good rookie cornerback in Tariq Woolen, but apart from that, their secondary is pretty arse, to be honest. He's the only dude they have. Jamal Adams went down. Quandre Diggs is all right. But yeah, I mean, their secondary is all right. They've got a couple good pieces, but I just think, they've just kept these guys in games for long enough. I mean, even Jared Goff got 400 passing yards on them without Amon Ra a couple weeks ago. It's literally not even a team that I would say has a good passing sort of, I guess, passing defense. That's just one. I think it'll be another fun game. I think Seattle's probably just a team you want to watch because they just don't play defense, and their opponents don't play defense too. Because
That's why Geno is such a good quarterback in fantasy, because his defense sucks dick. They
and
can't
he's
stop anybody.
performing.
And then all of a sudden he's got to come out and throw because he's got to get the touchdown back that his crappy defense gave up. So that's what you want. That's what buddy Josh Allen needs of the Bills to be an even better fantasy asset. You need a bad defense. It really helps. So yeah, I don't, like, you look at that Lions game, right? All the points went to buddy tight end and Hawkinson, and like a couple of touchdowns and Jamal Williams from the Lions. That's why it looks like that they're better defending the wide receivers than they actually are. But they aren't. They're just lucky that the touchdowns haven't been going to the wide receiver position yet. So I'm hoping with my Rondale Moore pick that might change this week.
Yeah, Mark, you got any thoughts to throw out there about Seattle or the Cardinals?
It'd just be interesting to know with Seattle what the red zone conversion is. So they're obviously getting yards. So they're moving the ball through the field okay. Playing bend, don't break, I'm guessing. I don't know how much they go into, whether it's cover 2 shell or whether or not they are playing single high. I'm not sure. I haven't really dove on them yet. But yeah, I mean, obviously they're just letting the ball into the red zone and they're just not giving up the touchdown in that area. They're just letting whether or not the run defense is just getting gashed or whatever.
They're getting destroyed. They're so bad.
Yeah.
Their opponents are scoring 60% in the red zone against them. So touchdown percentage wise. So that's not that great. So
I'm guessing
it's all rushing days. All rushing days.
There's no blown coverage, which, I mean, I suppose you that's one thing. But it means it's just still going to give up points.
Yeah, I'll put out a full split here. So yeah, 60% across the whole season. In the last 3 weeks alone, 90.91% and 100% last week. Touchdowns on red zone possessions for their opponents.
Yeah.
So they're 22nd in the league overall this whole season. But it's just been terrible the last couple of weeks. And yeah, they've been the worst red zone defense the last 3 weeks, apart from Minnesota, it looks like. So,
and you've got to factor in they've played Denver, who are the worst red zone team by a mile. And I think they had two fumbles from their running backs in the red zone against them. So you're factoring in that I think Denver were like 0% against them in week 1. That factors into their 60% for the season. They're probably like 80% against everyone else but Denver.
Yeah, and on that note, can you please prescribe a rushing touchdown for the Wankers this week? Because we drafted, I sent the stat in today, and Javonte Williams was second, and ETN was first in rushing yards without a touchdown the whole season, and we drafted them both. And it's like, can you just prescribe us a rushing touchdown, please, Dr. GoodCall? I'm on my hands and knees begging him, man.
It's been a tough year. I think you guys and Marky Mark are 1-4, aren't you?
Yeah.
What a 4-game losing streak. I beat Joel and then nothing.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, we lost to Joel last week, I'm pretty sure. So we've been terrible. We've been terrible all around.
You guys copped the one good Russ game from Joel. I think you guys a couple of weeks ago against the Raiders.
Yeah.
Oh, well. All right, I'll move on. I'll move on to some nice things. We don't want to talk about 1-4 starts. All right.
Is it nice to talk about tight end, though?
Well, for this guy, it is, because you've already brought him up, and he's not really a tight end. It's Taysom Hill. I always have a bracket here for matchup, but all I've written here is stupid doing stats against tight end, because he does literally everything else except catch passes. He's just up against the Bengals. I'm not going to stat anything to do with his position because it doesn't make any sense.
I'm actually going to kind of disagree, because remember, this is the first time I actually disagree with Dr. GoodCall.
I like it.
But week 1, he was just on fire, absolutely incredible. I started him at start of the week in week 2 against the Bucs.
So bad.
And what does he do? Absolutely fuck all. He does nothing.
This is my point, right? So I completely understand there is a massive chance he comes out and lays an absolute piece of shit next week. But that is the tight end position. Like if we had a bunch of like guys out there, ranked between 10th and 15th or something in tight end and they're out there getting 8 and 9 points, I'd be like, I'm not taking a shot on Taysom Hill. It's because I can go out there and get 8 or 9 points and I'll be fine. But you can't, like, you're a massive chance of getting goosed by basically anyone in the tight end position at the moment. So I'm like, why wouldn't I take the guy that's got a ceiling of 36 points? Because I may as well, if I'm going to get a shit score, I might as well get it from a guy with a chance of getting a massive game out of. So that's why I feel I may as well pick him up. And there's actually a couple of leagues where I'm really, really streaming tight end at the moment. And I'm like, I may as well just get Taysom Hill. What can I lose? I got 0.7 points or something out of Gerald Everett last week, like in these leagues. And I think there was another one where I had Tonyan, and I think he got about 3 points. Like, what am I losing by going Taysom Hill? Because even though if he gets and he scores 2 points the next 3 weeks, there's a decent chance the bloody crappy tight end that has a ceiling of about 7 points scores the same anyway. So I just feel like the fact that's the ceiling of Taysom Hill, I just think straight away makes it worth it in tight end.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, I'd rather go for that ceiling than that. It's a very low floor and a very high ceiling for Taysom Hill.
Which compared to the other tight ends, which is low floor, low ceiling.
Yeah, unless you're Kelsey, because Kelsey had 7 catches, 25 yards, and he goes out and scores 4 touchdowns. Seriously, like it's not even fair.
I did laugh when Matty's like, "Fuck, he sucked ass in my yards only league."
Who plays yards only? God damn.
I don't know, but it was funny though because I always think that even though it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, what a league. Yeah, yards only. I mean, that's just terrible. Yeah. Mark, you got any thoughts on this Taysom Hill pick?
I mean, the guy has a literal package named after him. I mean, that alone. That's awesome.
Look, if they have any chance of being the Bengals this week, Taysom Hill he's got to get involved, right?
Oh, like I love the rifle. Like he's just fun. But he's got to be involved. And I think you're right, Tay. Like the risk is almost worth the reward because unless you invested highly in one of the top 5 guys, there's no. And you said you started Gerald Everett last week. He's actually been pretty good. I mean, last week he was bad, but on average, he was averaging double-digit points at one. Up to last week.
Everett probably wasn't even the right example. Like he actually is one that you probably would normally start. It was just the fact that in that one specific league, he did happen to have an absolute piece of shit game last week. But it was more just sort of talking about the flaws of all these guys. Like nearly every guy that is in Kelsey, Andrews, like basically have these ridiculously low floors anyway, which just makes me think, well, I might as well just go for ceiling because there's a chance that my other guy that I start's just going to have an absolute stinker anyway.
Well, absolutely. And I think that highlights the point exactly. Like it doesn't matter how high they perform. They've got the floor is very, very real. Like you have to, that has to be in consideration. So Taysom Hill's absolutely worth a gamble where he's available, if he is still available.
I wouldn't be starting him at quarterback. I wouldn't be starting him at running back or wide receiver purely because that position is just licks balls.
I'd love to, and I can't remember which quarterback, it might have been Aaron Rodgers, threw a pass, it got batted down, he caught it and then ran it, just so he can have receiving stats.
Exactly.
Well, Marcus Mariota in this freaking
I remember that one
freaking playoffs. Yeah.
Maybe it was
Brad
him that
Johnson.
did it.
Oh yeah, Brad Johnson against when he was on the Vikings. He did that as the first guy to score a touchdown on his own freaking pass, catching his own pass. Of course, Brett Favre, his first pass was to himself. There you go. There's a few of those that I can ring out there.
So it can be done. Just do it, Taysom. Do it for the people.
Yeah, do it for the people. Do it. Double the points. Now, look, our favorite part of Dr. GoodCall, we can all agree. Who gives a shit about all the players Dr. GoodCall is prescribing as being good? We only care about AIDS, don't we?
We love spreading AIDS. That's our favorite part of the show.
Yeah. That's for sure.
All right. Here we go. Well, I've foreskin the hell out of the fact that it's a running back, obviously, that I've just brought up. So I've got some stats behind this one. I was able to sort of take a bit more of a deep dive. And this week, it's Miles Sanders.
Ooh.
So he's running back 13 on the season. So anyone who has him would be feeling like he's a value on where they drafted him, and therefore would probably be plugging him into lineups without really thinking about it. Now, I want to point out that his performances have been completely matchup dependent this season. Almost all of Sanders' production has come in 2 games this season, and those 2 games were against the 29th best run D and the 25th best run D in fantasy in the Lions and Jaguars. 67% of his points this season have come in those 2 games. His average against the other 3 teams is 8 fantasy points per game, and none of those 3 teams are even in the top 10 against the position. He now gets the Dallas defense, which is number 5 at defending the run. Expect a low yards per carry this week for Sanders, and without any receiving work, this will result in a low-scoring game for a rushing-dependent player.
Yeah, I'll give this one a big tick here because I tried to avoid drafting him, to be honest, because he was just the most draft avoidant player I could think of because I just don't know about him. He's not even that great, to be honest, in general, and I wasn't really rating him coming into the season, so yeah, I did have him in a dynasty, but I actually inherited that team, so technically not my fault there.
So, and this is what I kind of want to say about the whole fantasy aids thing, right? And it's not a full season projection, and it's not a what he's done so far. Like, I'm actually saying if you have Sanders, you're probably in front. Like, you actually got a good draft day value. So I'm not sitting here trying to have a go at Sanders for what he's done this year. I'm actually trying to say that might be to the person who owns him's detriment if they just keep playing him, because they might not do a deep dive like I've just done now and realize that nearly all his stats that have made him running back 13 on the season have all come in 2 games, and it's all been fantastic matchups. So I think you actually, if you have Sanders, it actually might be an awesome opportunity to keep him and use him as just a complete matchup play. Like, he might actually be someone that you go, oh, I'm only going to play him when he's against bottom 10 running defenses in fantasy, because he seems to actually have an opportunity to make it work, because obviously the Eagles play against bad run days and they beat them pretty handily, and they just hand the ball off to Sanders in the entire second half and he racks up stats. So there's actually an opportunity moving forward for the whole season, I think, if you own Sanders. I'm just saying for this specific week, I don't think it's going to be very fruitful against Dallas.
Yeah, Mark, you got anything to add here on Miles Sanders?
Mike is going to make him his bitch this week. Like, he hasn't played against anyone that good. Like, Micah Parsons is he got a pastry. Like,
MVP.
You gave him pastry, didn't you?
Yeah,
MVP.
I'm calling him defensive page performer at this point. I mean, Nick Bosa, his groin just got tightened, so my Nick Bosa agenda from last week didn't exactly carry over this week because of that injury. So screw the injury bug. But anyway, I think Micah definitely deserves to be defensive patient performer. As much as I want to clamor for Nick Bosa, I think Micah's he's a beast. This guy, absolutely incredible. And I think, yeah, he definitely will make Miles Sanders a bitch this week.
But Tay, just to your point, about doing a deep dive, when you have a look at his upcoming, so he's got Dallas this week, then bye week, then for the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, he's up against bottom half of the league running defense. So he's actually going to have a really good stretch before he hits some pretty tough games.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why it's a decent opportunity to actually hold him, I think. Like, I'm not describing that anyone should really get rid of him. I think you actually could just hold him because he's been a good draft day value, but recognize that just because he's running back 13 on the entire season, don't just plug and play him against everyone. Like, actually look for other options in your team. Obviously, it's team dependent. If you've got absolutely no other running back too, you're probably just stuck with him. You're probably going to have to roll the dice on that a bit. But I'm just saying, if you've got another decent option, don't just look at his tag of running back 13 on the year and just go, I have to play this guy because technically he's almost a running back 1. So I just think he's very matchup dependent.
So don't play Latavius Murray over him.
Like you said, I don't think his parents would play Latavius.
Yeah.
I wish I had Miles Sanders in this situation.
How about how about I throw up something that we did last season? Well, Maddie and Taylor did last season before I joined the podcast. But every 4 or 5 weeks, you guys used to do buy low, sell high.
Yep.
How about we give some to Mark? Like, who would you say would be some buy lows and sell highs at this point of the season?
Oh,
Also, it is very on the spot.
Let me
Yeah,
think.
I was just thinking about that segment because I've actually got
that's
a
cool.
couple.
So I kind of did this in my my rolling team of the year, where I picked out guys whose ADP was well outside anyone that you'd consider a starter and have actually come into starting value. So like Trevor Lawrence, for example, has come into, he started, I think it was quarterback 19. He's in at quarterback 10 at the moment. Dynasty value more so than redraft. But so he's one. Look, a lot of the rookies a lot of the guys I did were rookies. I think Ramondre and James Robinson, I think they're both, if you can capitalize on that and get something good out of it, I would.
Yeah. I was going to say James Robinson is a sell high for sure. Because I think they're definitely working ETN in. He's getting more and more snaps each week. So there you go. A bit of a sell high there. We own both of them on the lane.
I'd wait a couple of weeks on Stevenson specifically because he's now going to be the lead back. I'd probably wait it out, watch him have 2 really good games, hoping someone just sees the stats and then trades for him, not realizing that when Harris comes back, it's probably just another 50-50 split again.
Yeah.
Excellent call.
Yeah, I agree with Taylor right there because, Stevenson really just came into that game last week against the Lions and made his day. He made his mark on that rushing offense. So, Ramondre.
I traded for Stevenson in 4 different leagues over the last 2 weeks. So I'm not exactly hating the situation for him right now.
Yeah, I mean, Maddie just assigned you Stevenson. That's just how good Dr. GoodCall is. That Maddie knows that you really meant Stevenson instead of freaking Damian Harris. So, there you go. Ramondre, 100%. Another one nailed there by Dr. GoodCall. Yeah.
All right, well, that's the end of Dr. GoodCall for week 6. Let's see how it goes.
It's a good call, Doctor.
It's a good call. Thank you, Dr. GoodCall. We'll see him later. That's for sure.
Prosecution calls their first witness.
Do not panic just yet. Even I am guilty of panicking.
I mean, what, are you going to detain the guy for just having a couple of bad days? I don't want people to follow me around at work and detain me whenever I have a bad day.
20 bloody 8th, Your Honour. Sorry for the cursing in your old courtroom, sorry.
I will allow it.